بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Today inshallah part 2 on Habibah bint Abi Sufyan radiyallahu ta'ala anha shall be discussed. Habibah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, her original name was Ramla, and just as it was mentioned in part number 1, she was the daughter of Abu Sufyan bin Harb. And Abu Sufyan bin Harb radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, prior to accepting Islam, was the leader of the Quraysh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him a lot of influence, a lot of power, and at the time of the conquest of Makkah, in the 8th year of Hijrah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also granted him the tawfiq and ability to accept Islam. And his daughter, Habibah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she had already accepted Islam in the beginning and early stages of Islam. And just as it was mentioned that she was married to Abdullah bin Jahash radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who was a Muslim, and after migration to Habasha, again he accepted Christianity and he renounced Islam, and it was his efforts, or it was his desire, that his wife Habibah also renounce Islam and accept Christianity. However, she remained firm and steadfast, and to the will and grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she continued with Islam, and her marriage with Abdullah bin Jahash radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who was the brother of Zainab bint Jahash radiyallahu ta'ala anha, was one of the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam after Abdullah bin Jahash accepted Christianity again. The marriage with his wife Habibah radiyallahu ta'ala was then cancelled and terminated. This had an emotional setback and a very strong psychological impact on herself. But nonetheless, her perseverance, her connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed for her to continue with this process with ease. And whilst all this was happening, after her waiting period, known as Iddat, completed, that's when the Prophet ﷺ sent a marriage proposal to her, and he made the king of Habasha, Najashi, his proxy and his agent on behalf of himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she accepted the marriage proposal, and she assigned Khalid bin Sa'd bin As radiyallahu ta'ala anhu to represent her. So Najashi performed the marriage on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Habibah radiyallahu ta'ala sent one of her family relatives, Khalid bin Sa'id bin As radiyallahu ta'ala, to accept the offer which was presented by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nonetheless, the marriage was then conducted, and after the marriage was conducted, Najashi offered a feast on behalf of the bride's family. And great companions, Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, were a part of that feast. And nonetheless, Then came the time that she was sent to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina Munawwara. So the Mu'arrikhin, the historians mention that the marriage of Habibah radiallahu ta'ala anha with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this took place in either the 6th year of Hijrah or the 7th year of Hijrah. Habibah radiallahu ta'ala anha was extremely pious, and she had a lot of love and conviction in her beloved husband Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's teachings. Whatever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say, she would wholeheartedly carry out. And this is a very outstanding quality which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam possessed, because the husband is considered to be a friend of his wife, and this relationship tends to be an informal relationship. And because of the informality of this relationship, the wife does not show importance to the words of her husband, keeping in mind that the husband is a pious personality, the husband is a very righteous personality, and he's mentioning words of the Quran and Hadith. Many a times you will see the wives, the mothers, the sisters, they will not attach importance to what their husband is saying. Rather, importance is attached to what people outside are saying. There's no doubt, if the husband is speaking in light of the Quran and Hadith, if the husband is mentioning valuable and reliable content relayed by authentic and reliable ulama ikram, then this should be given importance. So nonetheless, Habibah radiallahu ta'ala, she was very ardent and very enthusiastic in wanting to practice upon the words and teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, and she is the narrator of the hadith, that whoever performs 12 raka'at, daily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build a house in Jannah and in paradise for this person. And thereafter, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that these 12 rak'at are distributed in the following manner: the 2 sunnah mu'akkada before the Fajr Salah, the 4 sunnah mu'akkada before the Zuhr Salah, 2 sunnah mu'akkada after the Zuhr Fajr Salah, 2 sunnah mu'akkada after the Maghrib Salah, and 2 sunnah mu'akkada after the Isha Salah. So she was very punctual with these salawat. In another hadith, or rather when the father of Umm Habibah radiallahu ta'ala anha, Abu Sufyan, when he passed away, his daughter Umm Habibah radiallahu ta'ala anha observed the grieving and sorrow which a person would normally observe for up to 3 days. And after 3 days, she asked for perfume to be brought to her. And when that perfume was brought to her, she took the perfume, rubbed it on her forearms, rubbed it on her cheeks, and she said that I heard from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that it is unlawful, it is impermissible for a lady, for a female who believes in Allah, who believes in His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to not adorn herself. So it is unlawful for her to stay in this grieving period for more than 3 days and not adorn herself. So after the 3-day period finished, although I have no need to adorn myself, I have no need to apply perfume, but I am applying perfume only with the intention to follow upon the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah. Umm Habibah radiyallahu, look at her zeal. Look at her love. Look at her passionate association with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's teachings. If we look at this from the academic perspective, there was absolutely no need for Umm Habibah radiyallahu ta'ala to carry this action out. She only did it because she had extreme love for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and their teachings. And not only did Habibah radiyallahu anha carry this action out, but every single Sahaba radiyallahu anha, they had immense and strong love for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they would want to carry out all of His teachings. Those teachings which were necessary, those teachings a person has to carry out because they're compulsory, they are mandatory. But even those actions which are not necessary, which are not compulsory, they're optional, they're desirable, they're liked. Even then, the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum would carry those actions out because they knew by doing so, they would acquire Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. So look at Habibah radiyallahu anha's zeal. Look at her loyalty to the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That there was absolutely no need for this, but despite that, even then, she wanted to practice upon the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At the time of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which took place in the 6th year of Hijrah, there was a treaty which was made between the Muslims, the Sahaba radiyallahu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the non-Muslims. And once this treaty was made, there was absolutely no possibility that any disloyalty and any treachery occur from the side of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. Rather, disloyalty and wrongness occurred from the side of the non-Muslims. When some of the main agreements were broken by the non-Muslims, Abu Sufyan, who at that time had not accepted Islam, he came into the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he wanted to discuss the contents of the treaty. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not agree. He refused to negotiate with him. Then Abu Sufyan, he went to his daughter with the hope that my daughter will intercede on my behalf to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when Abu Sufyan entered the room, what did his daughter Habibah do? As he was about to sit down on the bed of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she picked up the bed and rolled it and moved it to the side. And her father said that, "Oh, my daughter, why did you do this? Is it because I am not worthy for this seating arrangement, or the seating arrangement is not worthy for me?" So she beautifully replied by saying that this bedding belongs to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he is a Nabi of Allah. He is a Prophet of Allah, and you have not accepted Islam yet. So you are a mushrik. You are a polytheist, and someone of your nature, in the eyes of the Sharia, is classified as impure. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is nothing but pure. So how can it be that someone of your caliber is sitting on a bedding which belongs to someone of the caliber of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This is how much love Umm Habibah radiyallahu anha had for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So her love was not confined only to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's presence. Rather, her love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and her loyalty towards him was confined even in his absence. So it was spread out even to him in his absence. We find another hadith wherein Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that among the good characteristics that a wife should have, there are several, but some characteristics are وَالْمَرْأَةُ إِذَا صَلَّتْ خَمْسَهَا وَصَامَتْ شَهَرَهَا وَحَفِظَتْ فَرْجَهَا وَأَطَاعَتْ زَوْجَهَا قِيلَ لَهَا ادخلي من أي أبواب الجنة شئت. If a wife, if a female, if a mother, if a sister, if she prays her 5 times salawat, if she fasts during the month of Ramadan, if she safeguards her chastity, if she obeys her husband in matters where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed obedience, then it will be said to her in the hereafter that enter into Jannah from whichever door you desire. So among those qualities which a female should have is that she should safeguard her chastity in the absence of her husband. This means in the absence of her husband, she should not allow any stranger to come into the home. In the absence of her husband, she should not do anything which is against the desire of her husband, especially in relation to shari matters. So although Abu Sufyan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who had not yet accepted Islam, was her father, but look at her loyalty and look at her love, that even in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's absence, she manifested her love. And not only through words, by saying, I love you, rather through her actions. And who is she speaking to? She is speaking with her own father. And it takes courage, it takes boldness to say such things. So our Sharia teaches us that we should obey only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. But at the same time, the Sharia also says, وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Obey Allah. Do not ascribe any partners with Allah. But at the same time, deal with your parents in a good and in a nice manner. So if a person sees himself stuck in a situation where his parents, who have not yet accepted Islam, are directly or indirectly teaching or guiding or directing their children towards those things which are un-Islamic, and the children have accepted Islam, so in that case, the children, those who have accepted Islam, should hold fast to the teachings of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but at the same time, they should not use any inappropriate words towards their parents which could offend them or which could hurt them. Because we are instructed to be kind towards them, to be good towards them. Umm Habibah radiallahu ta'ala anha, right before her demise, she called for Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And when Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha came, she said, "Oh Aisha, you are my co-wife." And it is natural for the co-wives to perhaps violate each other's rights. It is natural for the co-wives to perhaps say something by which the other wife may have become inconvenienced. It is natural for one of the wives to may have done something by which the other wife may have disliked. So she's asking for forgiveness from Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha on the basis that I am your co-wife. So please, if I had done anything to you which has upset you, please forgive me. And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, look at her open-heartedness. She also says that I have forgiven you, and likewise you forgive me. In today's day and age, seldomly will we see the females asking for apologies. Rather, they want apologies made to them. But under no circumstances are they willing to apologize for their own actions. Even if they are on the right, perhaps someone is inconvenienced by our speech, perhaps someone is inconvenienced by our actions, perhaps someone is inconvenienced by something that we have made, gestured, pointed out, unknowingly. Even then, a person is still not willing to budge. So this is very, very important, especially for our mothers and sisters, and that is this ego of ours. In the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this ego will make a person drop and fall in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, those who crush their egos, those who crush their desires, and they go one step above and beyond what they're supposed to do, they will have a very high status in the hereafter, because this is among the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sil man qata'ak wa'fu amman dhalamak wa ahsan ila man asa ilayk. Maintain friendly ties with those who have cut ties with you, and forgive those who have oppressed you, and deal in a good manner with those who have dealt with you in an ill manner. So these were just some of the noble characteristics and noble features of one of the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Umm Habibah, who passed away according to the preferred narrations in the 44th year of Hijrah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to understand and practice. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Sadaqallahu al-azim.